All right, so Facebook and YouTube should be good to go, and we should be live everywhere now. All right, so welcome back, everybody. I see that we are live on most social platforms, so we should be good to go. As you can see tonight, it is just a dynamic duo. The bearded brothers are at it, and Rick getting the night off. He's got some other things to accomplish, so you may see him in and out of the chats tonight. But we gave him the night off because he's been busy. So, Rob, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just, been busy keeping up with the wonderful world that is the news that changes every day. So, always something new.
It's inevitable.
Yep.
Jason over on YouTube. It's good to see you in there, brother. It was nice chatting with you last week. It was fun getting to talk to you, and last night as well. So tonight's going to be a little different. We're not necessarily, our topic's going to be a little bit more open. I wanted to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing in rookie drafts, seeing as we're in the hot and heavy section of rookie drafts. I've had somewhere in the realm of 6 to 10 rookie drafts since the NFL draft, which was, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So I put together kind of a spreadsheet of the different trends we're seeing. We're going to talk about one QB, and we're going to talk about Superflex, and we're going to kind of break it up and just kind of have a conversation, kind of see what we're seeing in the community. Blake, what's up, brother? I see you over there on Facebook. I'm glad you're with us, man. It's always good to chat with you. So we're going to talk about rookie trends tonight, kind of the things we're seeing to help you prep. Maybe you haven't had your rookie drafts yet. Maybe you're in the middle of them and you need some guidance, and that's what we're here to do. So feel free to fire questions away. We're just going to kind of have a conversation tonight, and we'll answer whatever you got for us. Make sure if you haven't been checking out the website, go over to rotoheat.com. We're putting out all sorts of Dynasty Outlook profiles. So we pumped out Jacob, pumped out Alshon Jeffrey. I did James Conner the other day. We got all sorts of different guys that we're profiling. So make sure you go over to rotoheat.com, jump over to Twitter, keep the conversation going with us on there, over on our Facebook group, over on Discord. We're gonna have fun tonight. We're gonna do some chat. So Blake wants to know: do you think Joe Burrow is worth stashing? Um, Blake, we need a little bit more context as to what do you mean by stashing? What kind of league are you in that you're looking to get him?
Well, I'd say he's probably talking to one quarterback just off the top of my head that I'm gonna pick him up and stash him back there.
Yeah, and for reference, so I've been seeing Joe Burrow in the drafts that I'm in the one QB drafts I'm in. He went at the 11 spot in one draft, so that's a first rounder. He went at the 12 spot, which is a first rounder, and then he went at 18, which is a kind of early second. And Blake says he has Russ and Big Ben. I definitely would, because Big Ben's on a very short term lifespan. So he's definitely not going to be around for much longer. So I would definitely get Joe Burrow and stash him. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben's he's probably pretty close to the end, like you said. See how he bounces back from last year's injury, but I think he's slowing down. So want to get rid of him at some point, and Burrow should fill in there nicely. And I mean, you might be starting him already this year over Big Ben. I mean, chance that he could finish a little bit higher there than Big Ben, be a little bit more consistent week to week, especially in the back half of the year.
Yeah, if he comes back healthy, because that's going to be the question: is does he come back healthy from the injury? Obviously he got the injury early last season, so he should have plenty of time to recover. So if he comes back, he's got a ton of weapons. Obviously we know what's there with Juju and James Washington. They added Chase Claypool and Anthony McFarland in the draft. The Steelers have a ton of options. So if Big Ben's healthy and producing like he had been prior to the injury, the dude should be able to be a great QB2 for you. Burrow's going to be on the field, though. Burrow's going to see a ton of action because that team is developing. It's still young. The defense isn't great, but he's got a lot of weapons. I mean, think of it: Joe Mixon, AJ Green, T. Higgins, John Ross, Tyler Boyd. They drafted Sample as a tight end last year, so they have a lot of draft capital and then some veterans there to help Burrow grow. Like, I'm perfectly fine drafting Burrow as my future because I'm sure he should be able to get into the QB1 status at some point. And if you've got guys like Russ and Ben who are older, it never hurts to have have the backup plan. So,
Yep, for
any other
sure.
thoughts? Yeah, you're good with that? Okay.
No, I'm
So,
good.
if you can get them, I wouldn't spend a first on them if you've got those guys. So if Burrow's falling outside of that, I would certainly be okay with them. Obviously, I'm assuming Paul's over there. It says Facebook user, and I see IDP. So obviously, Paul's over there.
What's that? I don't know what that is.
Something you need to jump on board with. It's the future of fantasy football.
Yeah.
Doug, what's up, brother? I see Doug over on YouTube. It's good to see you, man. All right, so yeah, so we talked about Burrow. Um, okay, so some of the trends we're seeing, we're going to start talking about one QB draft trends that I'm seeing. Um, Obviously, draft spot changed a lot of these guys' value. So pre-draft, we were talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire as kind of like the 8, 9, 10 spot of drafts. In the drafts that I've done, he has not fallen below the number 3 pick in a 1 QB format. So one draft he was the number 1 overall pick. One draft he was the number 3 overall pick. In another one he was the number 3 overall pick. That's a big jump for me from pre-draft to post-draft. Obviously, Kansas City was a landing spot that seems favorable to people. How do you feel about CEH going that high in a 1 QB format? And he's going over Jonathan Taylor in one spot and going ahead of other guys like the Cam Akers and Swifts and Dobbins of the world if he's going at the 2 and 3 spot.
Well, I think we knew that was going to happen. Anybody who landed in Kansas City, I think we've been saying it for like 2 years, 3 years. Somebody gets drafted by Kansas City very high, they're going to end up being probably a number 1 overall pick in a lot of eyes. Now, I think overall, when you look at CEH, I mean, he's still like the 4th or 5th best running back in the draft, but personally, I still have JT above him, but I think he could go anywhere, really, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 every draft, depends on who guys like. I mean, you can't complain about too many landing spots. Yeah, CH got the best one, probably landing in Kansas City, but JT lands in Indy, behind the best line for his skill set. Dobbins lands in the best situation for his skill set, even though he might not have the same year 1 production. Cam Akers lands in a very positive spot in LA, something he'll be familiar with, running behind a line that can't block. Uh, even Swift has to split, but he can. It's still arguably a decent landing spot for him. And then Keyshawn Vaughn landing in a great spot in Tampa Bay. So I mean, all 6 of those guys could, I be kind of interchangeable within their tiers. And early on, I think it was kind of tiered like, oh, we have the top 5, and then kind of Vaughn alone as a 6. With landing spots, for me, I've almost broken it into 2 tiers: the top 3, Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, CH, and then Akers, Swift, and Vaughn. Yep, as tier 2, to kind of kick off my draft at the top of my draft board.
Yeah, and as the Lions guy in the community, Swift is a 3 down back. Like he could easily be that. I know Carrion has a lot of good traits. Obviously the injuries have been a problem for him. But Swift can be a 3 down back. So if Carrion isn't healthy, then Swift has value. Like the guy has not been nearly as injured and nearly as injured as often. And pre-draft before the Lions landing spot, people loved him. I mean, the conversation was, is he, number 1 overall pick kind of conversation, 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. So, immediately when the Lions took him, I was like, oh man, that's a tough one. I don't like that they spent an early pick on a running back, but the talent outweighs everything else. Like Swift is a very talented running back. So, I wound up getting him. So in the key, so in the 3rd draft, CEH went number 3 overall. I took DeAndre Swift at number 7 overall because I had the 7th pick. And I'm okay with it. Like Swift is gonna have a good career. I don't see him falling into the on Johnson trap. Now, is the curse of Lions running backs going to be a thing? I don't think so. Swift is not any of the other guys we've had over the last 15 years. Think of the Lions running backs. Injury prone job at best, injured Mikel Lashore, the ghost of Reggie Bush, Joy. I mean, all the list goes on and on of just retreads and guys that were hurt a lot. Swift is the opposite of that. He's really, if somebody's going to break the mold, it's going to be him. And if he doesn't break the mold, well, then we're probably just cursed. Who knows? There's not. I don't know what else to say about Swift other than I'm comfortable with the way you broke them up, like those top three, and then the next three, and then probably got some wide receivers in the mix there. Joik Bell the goat.
Yeah, I know kind of everybody else has wide receivers in the mix. I mean, to me, I got the top. If I had the top 6 picks, then I'd put in some wide receivers at the back end of that. But for me, I mean, those are the first 6 guys I want to target in the draft because I want to get running backs in the draft. So to
Ouch.
me, depending on where I come up, that's where they're gonna be.
And our chief over on YouTube just said Swift is garb. So Rick is saying Swift is garbage. Well,
I don't think that's the case, but
yeah.
I definitely didn't like him. Of what was the big 5 initially, I didn't like him, and I kind of had Vaughn as I liked him the least, I should say. I mean, I liked him enough to have him be a first round running back, but I thought the other guys had maybe some more unique situations that they could land in to really excel, and they all landed in those. And then I had Vaughn as my dark horse, where it was like, if Vaughn lands in the right spot, I think he's got the skill set to easily surpass, 1 or 2 of those guys, depending on where they landed. And he did, for me, landed a
Yeah.
better spot than Swift. And so, I mean, I've bumped him ahead of Swift.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is it kind of like Vaughn and Swift kind of changed positions when it comes to based on landing spot and post draft. Like people are really excited about Vaughn, and he's getting bumped up in most cases. Vaughn was kind of the late first, early second, and you've seen him. At least I've seen him in the different one QB drafts I'm in move up into top 10 consideration. I got lucky the draft I took him in, and those of you that are in Discord saw me talking about somebody tell me why this is a good pick. I had the 12 spot and I took him there. He's kind of jumped up and Swift's kind of fallen down. Those are kind of the two that have reversed. But the rest of the guys have all stayed very close, except for CEH, who's taken just a big jump pre-draft to post-draft. Wide receiver wise, CD Lamb and Judy are still your top 2, although in the one QB drafts, Judy is still going ahead of CD Lamb at least 2 out of 3. So Judy went at the 6 spot, the 7 spot, and the 5 spot in my 3-1 QB drafts that I've done so far since the draft. CD Lamb has gone. He went 4 in one draft, then he went 6, then he went 6. So it's 2 out of 3 times you're seeing Judy go ahead of him. So you're still having that same, people either love Lamb or love Judy. I mean, so the conversation's still the same. Post draft, pre draft, it's very similar. They're both top 10. So we're still seeing a lot of what we saw pre draft, post draft in the conversation. So I think the first round is still very similar, at least at this point. I've still got a few more drafts to go, rookie draft wise. So, what
Yeah,
have you been seeing?
no, I agree. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing those guys be kind of the first, well, the 5 backs plus Vaughn, now the 6th back. Him being kind of the one that kind of jumped from mid-second into that first round discussion. And then you're seeing kind of the same 5 backs outside of Vaughn and kind of the same 4 to 5 wide receivers. The one guy I've seen that seems to have slipped a bit from where he was being talked about, at least in a couple of weeks leading into the draft, is Denzel Mims. I'm seeing him kind of slip into the second, even into the later half of the second. And, I mean, I think we're putting a little bit too much emphasis in that case on Adam Gase. I guess. No pun intended. But Adam Gase is going to be gone in October, and then he's going to be Sam Darnold's number one wide receiver. This is still a guy that people were talking about as the some people had him as the number 3 wide receiver in this class going into the draft. Why is he now wide receiver 9 when he landed in an offense where he's the only receiving weapon?
Well, yeah, I mean, and he's clearly going to have the opportunity to be their wide receiver 1. He's got the big playability, he's got the big catch radius. There's a lot of the things you like about him. He can build a rapport with a young quarterback who is on the rise. I mean, Darnold had some weird, goofy illnesses and whatnot, but when he's healthy, he's played really well. So with the supporting cast around him, they've worked on the offensive line. It's arguably better than what it was. I'm not saying that's great. They added some help in the running game. Got Michael Pirine to help Bell. If Herndon comes back healthy, there's a tight end he can use. They brought Rashad Perriman over from Tampa. The guy at least is a big play. He can stretch the field, big play receiver. So, it's not great, but I think it's better than it was last year. So can Darnold do something with, a little bit better than he had last year? The interesting thing wide receiver wise is Rick's boy, Jalen Reagor, is firmly put himself in the top 10 consideration as well. He's basically gone either 10 or 11 in every one QB draft I've had so far. We'll talk about Superflex a little bit later in the show, but right now we're just kind of staying focused on one QB. Reagor's up there. There's a couple reports that have come out of some of the Philly news sources here recently that Alshon Jeffrey's going to be there this year because of the contract, and they expect him to be a big part of the offense. So if you're drafting Reagor, I would at least temper the expectations because he's not Alshon Jeffrey and he's not going to fill that role. But, if Alshon's getting catches and not hurt and getting those targets, I mean, they only got so many balls to go around.
Yeah. I've had Reagor as a top 10 guy, just like Rick did, pretty much throughout the whole spring here. And he didn't move for me. Obviously expect Alshon to do something, maybe Djax to do something this year. But that's going to be, those guys are getting old. They're going to be moving on. Rager's going to learn the position. I mean, I think we kind of got, a little bit the last couple of years. How do I say this? We got babied a little bit by rookie wide receivers because so many of them were hitting right away. You go back just a couple of years and it's like, yeah, you might get one, but the other ones, they're gonna slowly catch on as the season goes and get stronger, and then break out in year 2. But I mean, we've had guys breaking out the last 2-3 seasons in bunches, 3-4 of them at a time. So, you can expect, though, when you land behind some guys that it's going to take you a while. Same thing, CeeDee Lamb. Is he going to be, the wide receiver we thought he could be, in year 1? Yeah, very possible, but he's also got a battle with 2 pretty decent wide receivers in Dallas. So, it's going to probably be a little bit slower than we were hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just drafting for the talent, the long-term talent at the wide receiver position, knowing it might not happen year 1. Knowing guys have to grow.
Well, and the nice thing is your receivers, you have a longer shelf life, so you can sit on them for a year or 2, something like that. In a case like Mims, I mean, he's going to get forced into action, but of the guys who were taken in the first round, I think Reagor has the best opportunity of seeing a lot of playing time this year. Djax hasn't been healthy very often. Alshon's not been healthy very often. So then you basically are pushing JJ Arcega-Whiteside and Reagor into more playing time because inevitably they're going to have to be on the field. So, I think Reagor could give you good fantasy production year 1, where I think Lamb and maybe even Judy could see an increased number of snaps because that wide receiver room's a bit weak after Cortland Sutton. But I think Reagor has probably one of the better opportunities to be successful year 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think Judy has an excellent opportunity to be successful year 1. I think if Ruggs is what people think he is, he can be successful year 1. I don't think he's what a lot of people think he is, though. Not completely. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's an alpha dog wide receiver. But and Jefferson's going to get a lot of time too as well. That's the guy we haven't brought up yet. I mean, those 4 or 5 guys, those first 4 or 5 wide receivers, they all belong in that middle to back half of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys that were taken in the first round of the NFL draft. I mean, they've got the pedigrees coming out of college. They've got the measurables, and now they have the draft capital. That's where they belong. Now we know from past experience, not all of them are going to hit. So who's going to be the miss? But I mean, really, they belong in that top half of that first round, the back half of that first round.
Rick's hot taking us, so he's saying Rager's going to do 1,000 yards this year. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think if he gets a DK Metcalf year with 830 yards, 850 yards, that's going to be a solid year. Of course, that all changes if Alshon and Djax go down in the first 2 weeks of the season again, and he's the only wide receiver. I mean, but I'm not counting on those guys getting injured. It's very possible they could, and then that projection goes up through the roof, and I agree with Rick. But if those guys are healthy and he's kind of playing as that third wide receiver and growing and takes over that wide receiver 2 role midway, I mean, I'm seeing kind of an 900 yard season for him.
Yeah,
That's his top.
I'm about to say, Rick says this isn't even a hot take. He's just saying this is what it's going to be. As soon as the pick happened, I mean, thinking of what they've got there, my guess was probably somewhere between 650 and 750 yards wise, and probably 4 to 6 touchdowns year one, barring injuries. Once injuries happen, you can't predict those. Obviously, we know that some of these guys are a little more injury prone than others lately, but I don't, just the way that offense looked last year, I got to think the younger guys are going to get some more action because it looked bad. There was a lot of injuries, and the older guys just looked like they had lost a little bit. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and to your point of Justin Jefferson, he's another receiver who's firmly solidified a top 10 draft status, where we all kind of had him back half of the first, early second. He went 9, 9, and 8 in the 3-1 QB drafts I've done. So, I mean, he's, obviously, I was saying if he went to Minnesota, that would be perfect for him. Like, that's a great spot for him. He went to Minnesota, and obviously everybody knows that's a great spot, and the drafts are showing that. So, I could easily see him being somebody who gets close to 1,000, between 800 and 1,000 yards, and 6 to 8 touchdowns I'd be comfortable saying that.
Yeah, he's going to be the wide receiver 2 on that team to Adam Thielen. Who knows what Thielen looks like coming back from injury and being now 30 years old. And we've discussed before, never really probably truly being that premium athlete. I mean, a guy who played Division II football and was a good pass catcher and stuff, but was he a good route runner, but was he a premium athlete?
Right.
And so now being 30 plus years old and coming back from injury, how does his body take that?
Absolutely. I mean, well, and I think what was the stat? I think it was either Rick or somebody a couple weeks back said Thielen hadn't had a 100-yard game. What do you have, like 400-yard games in the last year or something like that? I mean, he just wasn't nearly on the same pace as he had been the year prior, where it was 100 yards every game. So, it isn't boding well for him.
I think it was like 1 in his last 16 now after like 2018 where he had a stretch of like 9 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And then since that point, like week 11 of 2018, he's had 1 in the last whatever that was, 15 or 16 games he was healthy for.
Right. Yeah. You're right. That sounds right. Absolutely. So we got a couple more receivers that are kind of all over the place. Chenault went to Jacksonville. I've seen him at as high as pick 13. So one of the 1 QB drafts, he went just outside of round 1. And then he went at 20, and then he went at 17. So Chenault's one of those that people aren't really sure. So you can tell who are the guys that like him and who are the guys that they're just kind of letting him slide to. And then the other one is Brandon Ayuk. So he went in the first round to San Fran, which surprised everybody. Nobody really expected that pick. He's gone at pick 16, 21, and 18. So these are both guys that are kind of sitting at the firmly in round two, but people are kind of all over the place about them. What's your take? How do you feel about those two? Are you still, firmly in round two for both of them, or do you think one of those or both of them have a good chance to be successful?
Um, well, just this kind of starts where that trend I see is happening, and that is that after the five guys, the five running backs that we had initially, um, and the four wide receivers that we just got done discussing, starting with Keyshawn Vaughn, and then all these wide receivers and the rest of the running backs here in the next, you know, 15 guys, 16 guys, maybe a few more, is they can all land anywhere in the next 16 picks, just depending on how your draft goes. And it's
Mhm.
probably even a bigger group than that. It's probably like the next 25 guys. They can almost land anywhere from the 111, back to as far back as some of those ones that are going 111. I've seen go like, 210, 212. And some of the guys going 203 are going at some points, like in some drafts, like 27.
Mhm.
So it's this is where the decisiveness goes. And there's the trend in it is get who you want because you have no idea what anybody else is going to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you've seen it. I've seen it in plenty of situations. T. Higgins is another one that's kind of going all over the place. You win at 14, 17, and 15. Chase Claypool is in this group. One of the drafts, somebody took him at 18. Let's see who else is on there. Michael Pittman is firmly at the beginning of two. He went at 15, 15, and 16. So, everyone's kind of early second with him. Brian Edwards has jumped up in the second round consideration at 22, 22, and 20. It's wild to me how there's so much variance with these receivers and they're kind of bunched together. So first round you see a lot of running backs and then the top end receivers, and then round two it's just, I mean, the doors come off. So in round two we see AJ Dillon's gone at pick 17. He's gone at 24 and 13. So he's a round two running back. Zach Moss is in there. Antonio Gibson is firmly in the second round. And then you also see the quarterbacks. So every one of these one QB drafts, all three of the top quarterbacks, so Burrow, Tua, and Herbert, have all been drafted. None of those are my picks. Like, I'm not drafting any of these quarterbacks in the early second round. Herbert went at 24. I'd be okay with a quarterback at the back half of the second round in a one QB league, but even that I'm probably not, just because the amount of value that's here. There's so many guys that I like that I'm like, I don't know that I want to waste my time on a quarterback in a one QB league right now.
For sure.
Uh,
For sure. I mean, well, and even you said Pittman going like 15, 16, like that even seems low compared to where I've seen him. I mean, I've seen him be one of those last couple guys of the first round, that 11 to 12 range, down to like the 3, 4
yep.
where you saw him. So I mean, like even he's got a half dozen picks that he's going in a range in, and there's just almost no rhyme or reason to it.
No, and that's the thing that I've liked and hated about this draft is when I talk to all the different owners in these different leagues, like they all have a different, the first round's kind of set. You have these group of guys. The order they go in may vary a little, but these are kind of your 12 or
Hmm.
14, depending on your league size. But after that, it's like all bets are off. It's what's your flavor. Um, it's interesting to me to see kind of how the draft has added other names to this list. So Brandon Ayuk is a guy I wouldn't have had in the second round, I would not have taken in the second round pre-draft. He goes in the first round, so now he's firmly a second round pick, guys like that. So this, it's really interesting. I mean, it really makes you, I think this year's probably been one of the most kind of all over the place second rounds I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, it's just they can. The whole second round could shift. Half the second round can shift with the third round. It's nuts.
Yeah. Oh, and over on Facebook, Komet's range has been gigantic. The top tight end in this draft has gone all over the place. I just did the top 2 rounds just to kind of talk about kind of how that's been going, but he wasn't taken in the second round of any of my 1 QB drafts. And looking at Superflex, he did not go in the second round of any of those drafts either. I don't think I've seen him go. There's a draft that I did that was a combo Devy. It was a Devy Superflex draft, but it was in future years, so it was really depleted. I think he was drafted in one of those in like the third round, maybe. Paul's out there; he would know off the top of his head, but I think it was like a third round pick. But other than that, it's basically third round and back. So the top tight end in this class is just falling.
Yeah. Well, and it depends even who people are calling the top tight end. I mean, that's been kind of the top tight end for a lot of us through
Mm-hmm.
this. But post draft, there's a lot of Devin Ozzy talk as
Mm-hmm.
maybe being the top tight end in this class just because of the New England landing spot and their traditional use of tight ends. And I've heard some crazy things about him going as far up as early in the third round to as late as the back half of the fourth round, maybe even in the fifth round, depending on the league. So it's like he's got a wide range too. I
Well,
think all the tight ends are all over the place.
and they took 2 tight ends within like what 3 or 4 picks. I mean, they were
Yeah.
both in the early 100s. So him and Dalton Keene, it's like ooh. I mean, that's just that I would let the tight ends just keep falling. Komet, I'd be comfortable with because Chicago needs a good tight end. I know they have 70 of them, but none of them are really any good. So, Komet is good. There's a difference. Like he is very good at all things. He can block. He can catch. He can do some spec. He made some really good catches at Notre Dame. So he's one of those guys I feel comfortable drafting. The other two, and I think we had this conversation on one of our live streams a few weeks back about New England isn't necessarily the tight end spot. Rob Gronkowski was good and Hernandez was good, but since then,
Well, who else has been good? Who was good before that? I mean,
that's the
did
conversation
Ben,
to have.
did Ben Watson have a year?
He
And
got
then
another year older, that's for sure.
yeah, and then it
That's
was like, okay, other than that, I mean, there was nothing before that, and there's been nothing else since Hernandez left. There has been no two tight end sets working in New England. So I don't
yeah.
know. It's kind of crazy. Now I think the one reason that one of those tight ends might have a pretty decent rookie year this year is that, if you're starting Stidham, even Hoyer, I mean, either one of those guys is a great quarterback at this point. Stidham's really young. You kind of need that safety valve that tight end can be a little leaky on the backside kind
Mhm.
of a thing. And so maybe that boosts one of them. But why Ozzy seems to be the guy getting the glove over Keene when you said they went 3-4 picks apart? I mean, it's hard to know which one's going to be the one that hits.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, you're not going to know because it's whichever guy fits and does what Bill tells him to do. You do your job, he'll play you. And that's going to be tough. Looking at both of them, nothing stood out with red flags as to character concerns or football IQ concerns. So it's hard to really see from the outside either one of these standing apart. So really, what it's going to be is you have to either bet on one of them or try to bet on both of them and draft them. But like, I just don't want either of them. Like, I'm not going to touch one of them unless they fall real far,
Yeah, I
because
think I think I nabbed them. The one league I nabbed them both in, but it was like the 4-7-5-7, and I think I went Ozzy first, and then I went Keene the next round because he was still sitting there, which was
yeah,
my hope when I drafted Ozzy was that I'd get them both.
yeah. Rick says he likes Asiasi as well because he can't block. So that means he gonna be running routes, and Rick says routes, routes, routes. So yeah, I mean, and that's what it comes down to is one of those guys going to be the blocking tight end? Well, that's great. He'll get a lot of snaps, but he ain't getting you any fantasy value. So is that Dalton Keene? When I looked back at the little bit of notes I took on him, I wasn't impressed with anything about him. I mean, he was okay at everything, but okay wasn't impressive. So, uh, yeah. Yeah, and over on Facebook, the board is beyond trash after like the 4-2 anyway, so that's fine. Yeah, I mean, once you get past that, then you're taking chances on deeper guys. I think I've seen like the KJ Osbornes of the world and some of these wide receivers that were taken from round 5 on. You just
Yeah,
dart throw.
and that's better than most years. I mean, normally we're talking about that at the 3-2.
Yeah.
So, it's dart throws by the time you hit the third round.
Yeah, the
For
2020
sure middle
class
of the
is a
third
fun
round.
one. I mean, it's a good
Yeah.
class.
And we've probably got an extra 12 guys you feel pretty comfortable about at least from an average year. I
Yeah.
mean, last year, what did we feel good about last year? 12 guys. This year we're talking we feel pretty good about maybe 40 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a deeper class. I mean it's got some value across the board. There's also some question marks. I mean,
Oh yeah.
some of the guys that I like and have been drafting. I mean, I'm drafting because I saw a thing I liked about them when I looked at their college tape. Now, hopefully that transitions well and they show up. But so yeah, I agree, Rick. Normally the second round is not great. Rick says the second round is normally garb.
Yeah. I mean, normally, maybe on a good year you got 15, 16, 18 guys, and then it's dart throws. I mean, 18 is usually a really, really good year. And then
Yeah.
it's dart throws. I mean, this year you feel pretty confident that you're not starting those darts, and for sure not those deep dart tosses until later in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
You feel solid. I mean, if I don't want to get Chenault, but if he falls to me in a late second round, and it's at that point he's the best player on the board, I'm not going to feel bad about it. I mean, he's good enough that most years he would be a much higher pick for me,
Yeah.
just not this year.
Yeah, and over on Facebook, their sentiments are 2020 class is more top heavy than we thought 6 months ago, though. Yeah, I mean the top half of this class is really nice, and there's really some really I don't want to use the word elite, but definitely elite talent players there at the top, and then there's a lot of guys that look good and could be good. So yes, it may be top heavy, but there's a lot of value to be had. So
Yeah.
and yeah. So, jumping over to the Superflex side of things. So we talked about first couple rounds of one QB and kind of some of the trends we saw there and some of the things that were happening. Superflex, is again very similar, but also surprising. So Superflex, you would think, kind of 1, 2, 3, you would expect your quarterbacks to go there. In the drafts that I've been a part of, I grabbed 3 of the drafts that I've been a part of and took the top 24 again. This time, really different than I expected. So, draft number 1, it went JT, so Jonathan Taylor, then Joe Burrow, then Tua. Draft number 2 went Burrow, J.K. Dobbins, then JT. Draft number 3 went Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then JT.
Yeah, it's
No.
all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. I expected 3 QBs at the top of those. Not 3 QBs went. Over on Facebook, I don't see the names in my chat. So it says, "What up, first time viewer? I am glad you're here, first time viewer, whomever you are." I can't see your name.
Vic Rogers,
Oh,
welcome.
Vic Rogers. Yeah, I think he's one of the new ones in the community. See you, man.
Yeah, welcome.
So Superflex top 5. I would expect all 3 quarterbacks to at least go in the top 5. Herbert did not go in the top 5 in any of the drafts that I've been a part of. Herbert went at pick 8. Herbert went at 11. Herbert went at 12. Like that is very surprising to me. He went to a good spot. He should be the future for them. What's your take? So I guess I fill in the gap. Tua went 3. Tua went 8 and Tua went 5. So he went a little bit further down, but still ahead of him. What's your take on that? What's your take on those QBs and how, obviously clearly Burrow's at the top and then the other 2 kind of fell down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely the right order for him, in my opinion. I really have no problem with the way any of those went down. I think I still have to update my Superflex rankings, but initially I went one right away, 1, 2, 3 quarterback at the top. And as I've gotten further away from the draft, my feelings have kind of evolved a little bit. because I've taken a look at these landing spots for these running backs and these great situations for these wide receivers. And it's like, and as I look at it, honestly, they have as much, and in many cases, a better chance of being valuable fantasy assets as these quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, we're thinking this is a guy who's going to be a quarterback one in this league, but that's a hard thing to do at that position. It's a lot easier for a running back to do that, especially when you've got 4, 5, 6 guys landing in plus positions. Same thing at the wide receiver position. You've got all these guys that landed in plus positions. And now, there's nothing wrong with the spots any of those top 3 quarterbacks landed. But, how difficult is it to be a good quarterback? We're lucky to get a superstar quarterback every other year in the draft. And so, what do we think? Why, if you've got a guaranteed running back, a nearly guaranteed running back, would you not consider taking him for that value and perhaps passing on the quarterback?
Well, yeah. Obviously, these drafts I didn't give you context. Team makeups, things like they're just the results of the drafts. So if your team isn't in need, one of these drafts is a league that was a startup this year. It was a Superflex startup that I drafted rookie pick 105, and then I drafted 4 seconds, and I took my last second and my 105 and traded up to the 101 and drafted Burrow, or 102 and drafted Burrow. So I got him at pick 2 because the guy took JT. I was like, oh, well, if Burrow didn't go 1, because I talked to the owner of the 101 and he wanted my first and the 4 seconds. I'm like, nope, I'm good. The second owner was like, yeah, because the quarterbacks I drafted were Dak and Wentz. So this was a draft that I did on one of our streams. I was kind of drafting while we were doing it, and Rick and I were chatted a little bit about it. And I went back to back Dak and Wentz, but that was it at quarterback. So I was like, dude, I'd really like to try to get one of these rookies. So I figured at the 105, I wasn't going to get a shot at one, so I traded up. So I like Burrow. His final year at college is definitely impressive, and he went to a good spot. I love the weapons he has.
Yeah, nothing wrong there.
But that doesn't mean he's going to be successful. I like over on Facebook, they said the best value in Superflex this year is Jordan Love. And I would agree. You're drafting him knowing that he's not going to play anytime soon. But he went in these 3 drafts, he went at 21, 22, and 16. That's a really good spot for a quarterback who's going to be a
I
starter.
think that's where he should be going. He's not going to be a starting quarterback anytime soon. That's where he should be going. You got all these starting players, again, like I said, same with the 3 guys. Why take a guy who there's no less of a guarantee on unless you're in desperate need of it? And why not, go for the more set value position, the value that's going to skyrocket right away. You draft a running back at the end of their rookie year, chances are they're more valuable than the day you drafted them. Or the quarterback at the end of their rookie year, probably not so much, And so, that kind of makes sense. And for Jordan Love, a guy who's not going to play for 2-3 years, his value might be the highest it's at for the next 24 months, today. And then that value is going to go down until that time when the talk starts ramping up of, are the Packers not, going to pull the out on Rodgers' contract? Are they going to trade Rodgers? Whatever that is. And then that value is going to start going back up. So, where we were seeing him drafted, pre-draft mocked as a back end of the first round pick, that would be a horrendous spot to take him now because his value is going to plummet.
Well, and the nice thing about Love is if you can draft him in the back half of the second round and sit on him, as soon as he becomes a starter, his value is going to shoot up. It's going to skyrocket. He's going to be worth more than a first easily, in a Superflex conversation, probably even more because, he's going to be a Packers quarterback. And those guys, people love Packers quarterbacks, even though they've only had a few in the last couple decades. They've always had good value. I don't know if I like the direction the team's gone. I don't know what the front office is necessarily doing. It seems like they're trying to look more towards being a run first type offense, which what does that do to your quarterback if they're running the ball? Well, unless your quarterback's running, it doesn't do much. So when Jordan Love becomes the starter, what's that offense look like? So as soon as his value shoots up, I would probably consider trading him if you don't love him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's, but then again, like we said, after those 12, 10, 12 guys, whatever it is that you feel really comfortable are really the plus guys at their positions, at the three wide receivers, the 5-6 running backs, the 5-6 wide receivers you feel most comfortable about. That's where you want to consider Jordan Love, because in 3 years that value could be unbelievable. I can see that at that point, and that's where that back end of the second round makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Even though you just have to do it knowing that your return on investment isn't coming anytime soon. So, and I'd take almost consider, I'm not a fan of Jacob Eason, but Jacob Eason has an opportunity to start, next year. Start by the middle of the year if Indianapolis season doesn't get off to a good start. I mean, he's got holes in his game worse than Jordan Love, and but he could be a starting quarterback a lot sooner.
I mean, he could, and I would even think about, I mean, obviously this year it's probably not going to happen. Phillips should come in, things should look good, and they should perform. Eason can ride the pine for a year, but him and Love, I'm okay stashing, depending on where you're drafting in your leagues, especially in Superflex, back half of the second round, I'm okay with stashing either of them if you like them, because at that point, then, the back half of the second round, just for context, so the back half of the second round, and I'm just going to go picks 20 through 24 in each of these three drafts, and then I'll let the community guess which draft is which one actually was a me pick. So draft number one, pick 20 was AJ Dillon, then Jordan Love, then Anthony McFarland, then Brian Edwards, then Antonio Gibson. Draft number two, AJ Dillon, Love, Edwards, Gibson. Draft number three, Zach Moss, Chenault, Jalen Hurts, Brian Edwards, Chase Claypool. So, at that point, if you're wanting to stash a quarterback, you're drafting in those spots because you're one of the better teams in the league. So your roster is probably in a decent spot. I don't care if you take. I took one of those leagues was me at pick 22 taking Jordan Love. One of those leagues was me at pick 22 taking Anthony McFarland. Like,
Ooh, a surprise! I knew that as soon
I
as I
know,
heard
right?
McFarland.
He's
Now, okay,
and
now
as you
that's
can
another
tell,
guy though who's
he's
been crazy because I've seen him as high as like pick 14, 13. It's like,
he's a mid
what?
second rounder for me easily. Um,
Yeah.
I could not get him. So in the other league, Jordan Love was still sitting there. I took Love over McFarland. I would have taken McFarland in both of those drafts at the 22. But none of the drafts I've been in, McFarland's gone in the second round unless I've traded up to get him because I've traded up to get him in a couple spots. So, uh, you know, I'm okay with a quarterback at the back half of the second round in Superflex.
Yeah.
Because most of those guys, I mean, outside of Chenault at 21 in two of those leagues, I'd have probably taken Chenault if he was there for me when I drafted,
Hmm.
but he wasn't.
Yep,
Other
for
than that,
sure.
like Brian Edwards went 23 in all three of those drafts that I mentioned, and I don't know, man. Like I'm not sure I feel good about Brian Edwards right now in Vegas. Like I like the player. I'm just not sure how much I like the player. What's your take on Edwards?
I like Edwards. I like Edwards a lot. Edwards before he got hurt going into the combine and stuff was like my pick 13 on my draft board in single quarterback. I had him as a borderline first round pick, and then of course he misses the combine uh, with that injury, and then there's no pro day workouts, and he starts to slip and slide. But then his capital wasn't that adversely affected as bad as I thought it could have been. And then he lands in Las Vegas. They've got Henry Ruggs, who's going to be that outside guy going the speed. He's better than Tyrell Williams. He's better than Hunter Renfro. So he's gonna have a role on this team from the get go. I
Nelson
mean, I wouldn't be
Aguilar.
surprised if he, huh?
I said Nelson Aguilar.
What? Who? uh, no, I think he immediately slots in as the Hunter Renfro role, as the kind of that slot receiver, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's splitting his time between slot and the outside and playing. Him and Ruggs are really on a rotation. If one lines up inside, the other one goes outside, and it's whoever gets open. Kind of a thing. As they develop that chemistry throughout the year, I think it's a really good pairing. I think he's going to catch more balls than Henry Ruggs over the course of the season. It's just they're not going to be for 40-yard touchdowns. That Ruggs is going to get you. He's not going to get as many. He's fast enough to get some big plays, but he's going to be that more. I'll run the underneath route while Ruggs goes over the top. And who does the defense flow to?
So my question then moves to, because when I look at this offense, what's the difference between him and Darren Waller? Like the way that they're going to, they brought in Witten, so obviously he's kind of inline blocking, maybe do some real short stuff. But, Waller fits that profile where they could split him out and do some of those things. For me, it's like, okay, how many guys are they going to have on the field on offense? He likes to play 1 to 2 running backs at the same time, 2 tight ends.
Sure.
I mean, then 2 wide receivers. Like, how does this affect all of them as a whole?
Yeah, well, I think how he differs from Waller is he's 7 years younger and no, and doesn't have to use drugs. No,
But Waller broke
like,
out last year. Waller had a really good year.
No, honestly, what you're saying makes sense. Like Waller fills kind of a similar role too. But if we're looking, if they're going to start a tight end and 3 wide receivers, who's that going to be? Ruggs, Williams, Edwards, and Waller, right? I mean, it's not going to be Renfro. And I expect Edwards is going to take over for Williams, and then maybe Renfro is back on the field because he might be better than Williams. At that slot position once, if Edwards bumps out to the outside a little bit more. And so, I mean, I don't see that there's an issue as long as they're going to throw the football. As long as they don't run it, 500 times. I think there's going to be enough to go around. It's just, is Derek Carr good enough to get it there consistently? But I think there's room for him, even if him and Waller are doing some similar things.
Okay. Our boy CXK's on the YouTube chat. Our boy CXK is on the YouTube chat. All right, so CXK has a question. Thinking of trading away James Conner and Brandon Cooks for Mike Evans and Rashad Penny. I know Penny has 0 value, probably, but I'm thinking next year just to get an RB back. Superflex, Dynasty, PPR, 2 tight end, 2 QB, thoughts. I do that deal in a heartbeat because Conner and Brooks are nowhere near as valuable as Evans by himself. So Evans and Penny is fine with me. What are your thoughts?
Yep, hands down. I'm taking that 100 times. If you can sell those guys, get rid of them. Go get Mike Evans for sure. And Rashad Penny is just a throw-in. And I don't think the Rashad Penny story is over yet. I mean, he hasn't been good for a first-round pick, but he was starting to produce last year. And if he can come back and be a decent semblance of himself, of what he was becoming when he gets back from this injury, when he gets off PUP in week 8 or whatever that's going to be, I think he's got a chance to take over that backfield in the second half of the year, and then who knows what happens next year.
Yeah. I would CXK, if you can get that deal, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do that in any league format. Like, it doesn't matter to me the league format, because Evans, I think, is by far the best player in that deal. I think I like Cooks. I wish Cooks wasn't another concussion away from probably missing significant time. Cooks would be a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, but Evans is elite, and I think still has many years of wide receiver 1 production left. James Conner is not a bad piece either, but I just, for me, it's I want the best player in that deal, and by far that's Evans. So the tough thing with Penny for me is, so now Seattle's backfield is even more crowded. So they got Carson, Penny, Travis Homer, and his running mate from Miami, DJ Dallas. So now you've got, four running backs that could all easily be involved in that offense. So it's like, man, Carson's obviously the one as long as he doesn't have any fumbling issues. Uh, but after that, I mean, it's anybody's ball game. Penny's got big playability, keeps getting hurt. DJ Dallas could be a sleeper type guy, but I wouldn't bet on him because Travis Homer is just as good as him. I mean, for the most part. So I don't know. I struggle with that backfield as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. So we had a question: who's going to be the last Texas wide receiver standing? From Corey Stone, and I'm going Isaiah Coulter. Get yourself some Isaiah Coulter at the back of the draft.
He's the only one that doesn't have any huge injury issues. Kenny
Yeah, and
isn't
he's big,
Kenny Stills is still there. He could be.
and
Those could be your wide receiver
good
1 and 2.
size. He's got good size. I mean, yeah, he's what was he, an undrafted player?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, he's an undrafted free agent, but look at the guys in front of him. They're fast guys who are kind of small, and they get their hamstrings screwed up every other weekend. So
Yeah,
I mean, he's gonna have a path to play, I think, and there's some
and he's a big
talent there.
fella.
Yeah,
What is he like? 6'2", 6'3"?
I think he's 6'2", like
Yeah.
223, something like that. Like he's got some good size.
Well, I was just pulling up their depth chart on our lads because last I remember, like I mean, every one of their top guys are, you're probably going to get 5 to 6 weeks out of them. I mean, it's like they're just all hurt all the time.
Oh, I guess I had the wrong weight. He is 6'2", but he's only 198. But
But he can add at 6'2", he
he
can
can.
still add another 10 pounds
Yeah,
easily.
I had him confused with somebody else who had that extra weight. Probably Chenault.
Yeah, I mean, look at their receivers. Brandon Cooks, Kenny Stills, and Randall Cobb will be their top three. That's a lot of injury
Well,
prone
and Will
dudes.
Fuller.
Well, yeah. So our lads right now has Cook, Stills, and Cobb with Will Fuller hiding in their second round or second level with Kiki Kuti, Stephen Mitchell, Whitney Isaac, Chad Hansen, DeAndre Carter, Isaiah Coulter, Tyler Simmons. Oh, Coulter was a fifth round pick. Simmons was the undrafted guy.
Simmons was the undrafted guy. Okay, yep.
Yeah. So yeah, Facebook Facebook says I'm glad someone else noticed the greatness of our lads. I do. I like our lads. They're they do scouting services and stuff like that too. Like I because I do a lot of Devy stuff. I've been a follower of that site for a while. There's a lot of different Devy college related sites that I follow, but our lads. Their depth charts aren't perfect. I mean, there's plenty of times where it's like, no, it's not really accurate. I mean, even this one, I think Will Fuller is probably their top receiver. Him and Brandon Cooks. Like if they're
Yeah,
on the field, those two are probably on the field together. But
yeah.
right now it's off season, so I don't always take these depth charts with
Well, I don't think you can find an accurate depth chart here.
no.
Yep.
Well, no. I mean, it's just all the players are on. I mean, like
Yeah,
Ross Blacklock was their top draft pick. He's not listed as their starter, and some guy named Eddie Vanderdoes does. So that's not accurate, obviously. But
yeah.
so Coulter could have a role. I mean, even a guy that they have on their team, Chad Hansen. I think he was from UCLA, and the Jets drafted him a couple years back. Dude's super good hands catcher. Like he's a very good hands receiver. Just doesn't have big playability. So they've got guys on the roster. I'm like, I don't know, any one of these guys probably could add some value at some point, but I'm just not touching any of them. I mean, if I have Cook shares, I'm stuck with him for now because the dude, has not been healthy for a little while. So I'll sit on him until his value bounces back, and then I'll trade him.
Sure.
Preston over on YouTube. Trade Hollywood and Jalen Rager for AJ Brown. I don't know, man. I like Rager.
I like Rager a lot. I like
I think
Hollywood.
him and AJ Brown could be comparable value wise. I think
Yeah.
Hollywood's going to give you some wide receiver 1 weeks, but those are going to be few and far between. Um,
I don't.
that's a tough one. I
That is
probably
tough.
wouldn't. I would probably not do it just because I think Jalen Rager. Ooh, I don't know. I'd probably do it just because we know AJ Brown's done it, and we've seen him produce at the NFL. Where Rieger is we like him, but that doesn't mean anything. Like just because you like him doesn't mean he's going to produce.
Yeah. So you're gonna do it? I'm gonna
Yeah,
not do it.
I'd probably do it.
Okay, I'm gonna not do it, and here's why. Look at so same thing you were talking about Rager and AJ Brown being similar. Look at where Tannehill throws the ball. It's over the middle, right?
Hmm.
He's not. And to be a true, where do the true wide receiver ones catch the ball? It's outside the numbers. And that's not in Tannehill's repertoire. That's not his game. It worked very effectively last year, throwing balls over the middle and stuff, but he's not a great receiver. He's not going to be throwing outside the numbers. Jalen Rager has a good quarterback in Carson Wentz. Excuse me. Tannehill's not a good quarterback, not a receiver. He's not a good quarterback. He's not going to be thrown outside the numbers. Wentz is a good quarterback. Wentz will throw the ball outside the numbers to a guy who can go get the ball. And that's what Rager can do. And he's got the arm, the confidence, the skill set to do that Tannehill doesn't have. That's why I think Rager can have the higher ceiling. If you're talking just for this year, if it was a trade just for this year, do I want these two or do I want AJ Brown? I'm probably going AJ Brown. But dynasty wise, I think Rager's in the better situation long term. With a better quarterback, more likely to have sustainable wide receiver 1 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Rick, I agree with you. It's a fair deal. I think depending on your roster makeup, if your wide receiver, I think those guys are going to be comparable, Rager and Brown, value wise in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
I think so then is Hollywood kind of a depth guy that you can use bye week fill in type thing. Then maybe I keep that side. Um, I can see myself keeping that side for the depth, and things like that. I mean, but you could go either way. I wouldn't fault you if you did that trade. I also wouldn't fault you if you kept it. I mean, it's close enough.
Well, I think it
So
speaks how fair it was. Is whatever side you took, I was going to sit here and take the opposite, just to
play
kind of
devil's
throw out some
advocate. Sure.
some other thoughts because that's how close it is. So it's just fair and it's what you prefer.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, are you going to go with, and all three of the players are super young, so they're going to should have, a nice long shelf life. Oh, Preston says the receivers are Odell Beckham, Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, and Hollywood, and obviously Rager. Um, I probably wouldn't do that deal at this point
Yeah.
then, because I like OBJ. I love Metcalf. Love Ridley. Hollywood. Like I said, will have some good weeks, but he's not a guy I'm trusting as a starter. So yeah, I wouldn't do that deal because you don't. I mean, you have plenty of wide receiver one options there.
Yeah, and we really like Rager. So now you got four rotational, but then wide receiver one, high end two type guys.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't worry about
Ridley's
it.
not going to be a one until Julio is gone, more
But
than likely
he's gonna give
as
you
far as
good weeks
fantasy
though.
stats. But he's going to have
Yeah,
good stats.
yeah. Yeah, so I would, with that being the case, Preston, I would hold off unless the AJ Brown owner is going to give you something to sweeten that deal. Draft capital, 2021 draft capital or something like that. I mean, this is the time of year where people are willing to be a little more loose with their 2021 picks. So if the guy really is trying to get Rager in Hollywood, like, hey, throw in a 2021 second or something, and see if he gets the deal done. So good luck, Preston. Hopefully that helps and get you what you need. Uh, if you guys have questions, feel free to pump them out. I see we got a lot of folks watching on all of our social platforms. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We're just gonna keep pounding through. So we're talking, kind of some of the rookie trends. So we've been talking about kind of the top 10-ish picks of Superflex right now. So in what we're seeing in some of the drafts that are going on right now, because we're hot and heavy in the rookie season. The interesting thing to me is now we're going to talk about kind of the back half of the first round into the second round. So I'm just going to kind of quickly hit on some of those back half of the first, early second picks because we talked about the end of the second when we were talking about our quarterbacks. We talked about the top 10 as we've talked about already. So Keyshawn Vaughn has gone at 11, 13, and 11. So he's back half of the first round. Justin Jefferson's gone at 12, 14, and 13. So he's kind of firmly back half of the first, early second. Ruggs has fallen down there in one draft, but he's also gone in the top 10 in two other drafts. So that's kind of the outlier. Brandon Ayuk is at 17, 17, and 18. Pittman, 15, 15, 17. Higgins is falling in there. He went at 15, um, 15, 16, and 18. So you're kind of seeing those next tier of guys really starting to slide in here. Chenault's gone in there. The interesting one to me, though, and I didn't see him go in the second round in any of my drafts, KJ Hamler. One of the drafts took KJ Hamler at 19, and I didn't see him in any other draft. I did not like that pick, and that dude got roasted in the chats for it.
Yeah, I'm hands off. I don't want any shares of KJ Hamler. The guy's fast, but he's got hands like bricks.
Yeah, he reminds me of a guy that used to play for Detroit and St. Louis. I can't think of him now. He was there when the Greatest Show on Turf, and then he came to Detroit. He's same thing. I'll think of it later and then go, oh yeah, it was whatever. So outside of that, we're kind of still seeing very similar things. Well, we got a question, so we're going to hold that thought. So over on Facebook, Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix? This is a Devy question, so I don't know how much you know about the Devy guys, Rob. We haven't talked Devy a lot.
Well, let's see.
Bo Nix is from Auburn.
Jaden Daniels is the ASU quarterback who transferred, right? Is transferring. And Bo Nix is Auburn's freshman.
Yep. And he had a pretty solid first year.
They were both freshmen this year, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, from a Devy standpoint, I don't know. I can just tell you who I like.
Well, that's okay. Tell them who you like.
I like Daniels more from an upside standpoint, from what I see. Bo Nix is very good. He's got pretty decent arm, I think. But I feel more, at least what I saw freshman year from him in the games I watched for Auburn was much more game manager style and just pressing it at moments, where Jaden Daniels seemed very much in that Herm Edwards offense to kind of be a let's let loose and ball and chuck it up deep to Ayuk and whatnot, and let's make some plays. More along that Aaron Rodgers, that Patrick Mahomes style. Like I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna go out there and throw my arm out there, and I'm gonna make plays with my arm and with my legs. Where Bo Nix is a little bit more, maybe that quarterback who's less risky, like a Phil Rivers or something. I'm gonna hang around a little bit more in the pocket. I'm gonna wait for my guys to come open. I'm gonna do the small things instead of making the big flashy play.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards a guy like Nix just because he feels safer. But I put Jaden Daniels. I liken him to like you said, those guys, and I would throw Jordan Love in the conversation. Like you could have put him in Utah State's offense, and I would have seen very similar numbers to Love. I'm sure. A lot of turnovers, a lot of fair amount of touchdowns, fair amount of turnovers, some rushing yards. Dude has the better athletic profile. If your flavor of quarterback is the athletic profile quarterback, is going to get you some good rushing yards, get you some of that, which is helpful in fantasy. Definitely go Jaden Daniels. If you want the guy who's safer, who's not going to throw a ton of interceptions, who's just going to kind of be more of a closer traditional, but he's still got a little wiggle to him where he can get out of the pocket. So sure. Bo Nix is there. I think he's got a really solid arm. He makes good decisions with the ball, at least so far.
He's big too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a big kid. They're both pretty good size though. I think Daniels is 6'3", isn't he? 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, but he's tall, but he's wiry.
Yeah.
Where
Nix is solid.
I'm not going to call him Cam Newton, but he's got more of that Cam Newton build where he's a solid guy. He's not quite that big, but he's a solid guy.
So it depends on your
more
flavor.
Like a Ben Roethlisberger type. Where he's solid.
Yeah. I mean, you could go that route.
Yeah.
For sure. So I guess it just depends
now,
what your
Daniels
flavor quarterback
is transferring, right? For me, it's
I'd have to check. I think he put his name in the transfer portal, but that doesn't always mean a guy gets a transfer just because he went into the portal. I'd have to look.
because like depending on where he goes, yeah, he put into the transfer portal. So
So
like where he goes, is it like, or no, Yellen, his backup transferred, put into the transfer portal.
yeah,
Another quarterback. I don't think he did.
I don't know if he did.
I'm
I'd
not
have to
seeing
look.
I'm not seeing it that he did now. So I thought I had read that he had at one point, but
Oh
if
yeah,
he's
so over
not,
on
I mean, I think
Facebook,
it's kind of
Daniels is
comparable.
transferring. Yeah,
Yeah.
they say Daniels is transferring.
Oh, they do?
So it just depends. Yeah, over on the Facebook group. So it just depends on your flavor of quarterback. Daniels has definitely got some upside. Nix has got some upside. I think they're both when you're looking at your Devy drafts. I would feel comfortable taking both of them in the same range. Kind of that. I'm not going to say when to take them because the Devy drafts are always all over the place. I've seen multiple Devy drafts this year, and guys are taking all over the place. So I wouldn't tell you where to take them, but I would feel comfortable with either or. So next question. Oh, Preston over on YouTube. Who would you take at the 5 spot in your rookie draft? Akers, Lamb, or Judy? I lean Akers because running backs always fetch much more in trade value. I'm guessing this is probably a 1 QB. Well, I guess it could be anything. If it's a 1 QB, I'm definitely taking Akers. If it's Superflex, I'm probably still taking Akers. I like Akers as a running back, though. I wouldn't fault you at taking Lamb, Judy, or Akers at the 5, though. But if Akers is still on the board, you probably need to take him. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm taking Akers there for sure. I mean, unless I've got 6 RB1s.
And I'll tell you a fun strategy I used this year to kind of try to see if I could make something happen. When I was picking in the first round, in one of my drafts, because I've been doing all this fantasy football stuff, I like to try things in my leagues to see if it makes sense that maybe I can have this conversation. So I went into my group chat and I said, listen, I'm taking, I don't remember who I said I was taking here. I was taking this guy at this spot. Does anyone want to trade for this pick? Because I didn't care if I got the player, but I knew that some of the people in the community, in the group, liked him. So I said, so this is a spot where Preston, if you're picking at 5, maybe your team is still young and rebuilding. Maybe it's not one of the better teams. But if you've got nice depth at running back and your running back's good, maybe you can put this up on the block and be like, listen, at pick 5, I'm taking Cam Akers unless somebody wants to trade for it. And see if you can get a high bidder type situation where somebody comes up and wants to give you a bunch, but you wanted wide receiver anyway, so you can fall back a couple spots to get a wide receiver.
For sure.
So just throwing it out there. It worked for me. I added a bunch of draft capital, and the guy got the player he wanted, and I was able to move back and still get some guys I like. So
Yeah, we got another question there asking, at what point do you start to convert 2020 first into 2021 first? And he's got picks 2, 4, 6, 9, and 10. And he was thinking of maybe pushing 9 and 10 back to next year.
So Nathan, it's a 12-team, 1 QB PPR dynasty. Man, so it really depends on what your needs are. So when you have that many picks, that tells me that you got guys to trade you those picks. So I don't know which spot you're picking at. So if you're one of the better teams, convert any of those picks if you want. I mean, the problem that you run into, and this is a conversation we had in one of our group chats, is not every year you get a draft like this where there's a lot of depth and some really interesting prospects, even in the top 24, 30 picks, 40 picks, whatever we said. So I'd be careful. I wouldn't jump unless the deal is, well, yeah, what Rick said. I wouldn't jump unless the deals are super smash deals. Unless it's one of those instant accepts, I don't know that I would jump out of these picks because a lot of these guys are guys that are going to be foundational building blocks. So at pick 2 and 4, you're getting stud running backs or a stud running back and a stud receiver. At 6, 9, and 10, you're still getting really good receivers and running backs because you're probably still going to get yourself Jalen Rager, Keyshawn Vaughn. I mean, you're adding a ton of. So he added some. Oh gosh, so he's got Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Kamara, Hopkins, Kittle. So he's got some really nice pieces. But this fills out your depth and it adds some really good value. So unless you're getting great deals, I'm not jumping on that. Like these dudes got to give up something of value to get these picks from me. What do
Hey,
you think, Rob?
you know what's better than starting three RB1s? Starting three and having two on the bench so other teams can't start them. You know, I mean, honestly, in this class, if you have the roster space for those 5 picks, I'm not trading a single one of them. Because those top 10, 11 guys, like, I want
So,
all of them.
so good.
Like, there's not a single one I don't want somewhere. And, where sometimes it's like, last year, David Montgomery, people were really high on him, and he was one of our top 4 picks, right? In most drafts. I didn't get him anywhere. I didn't want him. I don't have any of those guys this year. Henry Ruggs is probably the closest guy to that top group that I really don't want that many shares of.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me, I'm keeping those picks and using them and building my team. Unless, like Rick said, super smash deal. And I mean, we're talking, I have to have at least a first and second round pick from the team next year, at the very least, to even be thinking about trading it at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
And I don't even know if that's enough for those picks.
yeah,
And I think if
I
you
would
hold
want a
until you're
lot.
on the clock, until that pick's on the clock, those deals are just going to get better. And
Yeah.
who knows what you could end up with.
Well, and so it depends. There's a lot of factors that go into it, Nathan. I mean, I definitely. So these are obviously your more notable players. This is only 5 guys. So if your roster is real top heavy, this draft fixes that. This draft then makes you more balanced because you're getting a ton of talent with those 5 picks. They've got to be really good, and they've got to be something that because what happens is you're now kicking the can of 2021. What if next year's class isn't as good? What if the next year's class really is only top heavy and, the top 5 to 10 guys are really good. And then one of those picks that you traded back out of the top 10 isn't, a top 10 pick. I mean, you have to think about those things when you're making those deals is it's great that you're going to get something in 2021, but is 2021 any better than 2020? I mean, so it's a tough call, but I definitely am not going to move them unless the deal is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not moving them. I'm in a similar position, Nathan. I got a draft, which we won't draft for quite a while here, but I have picks 2, 4, 9, 11, 12, 14. So I have 6 of the top 14 picks. I've had guys trying for months to get me to move those picks, and I've said, you want them, make your offers, but unless you blow me out of the water, the first day those are moving, unless I'm totally blown away, is potentially on draft day, and it's still going to take a trade that blows me away because I like all the guys I'm going to get there a lot. And
Yeah,
I don't. I mean, I look at next year's class and I think it's a really good wide receiver class, but you have 4 of the top 9 picks. That could potentially be 4 running backs, which you've got 3 good starters as it is. But 4 running backs, I mean, that's valuable. And 4 of the top 6 running backs, depending on how your draft plays out, if they go 4 and then you get Judy and Lamb at 5 and or you get one of them at 5, and then at 6 you could take Akers or whoever is there, Swift, Vaughn, and then all of a sudden Lamb and Rager go, 7 and 8. You could be sitting there with the other one at 9. I mean, that's invaluable to me. I'd love that, and next year I look at it. This is the year to get a running back. Even if you've got running backs right now, we don't know where Delvin Cook will be. We don't know what'll happen with Kamara, what could happen with CMC. This is the year to load up on the running backs because there's enough good ones. Because next year that running back class is weak. I
yeah. I
think.
mean, well,
I
next
think
year's
it's the
running.
three. I think it's the 3 guys who didn't come out this year are leaps and bounds the top of that class next year right now. ETN, Hubbard, and Najee Harris. I don't know. Right now, I'm not huge on any other running back in that class.
I don't know, man. There's potentially some good ones. Zamir White, Max Borghi, Master Teague, C.J. Verdell. I mean, there's some guys that could move themselves into that conversation. I mean, even Puka Williams, if he could stop getting in trouble, could be a really talented, but there's some question marks for sure. So you have to be careful when kicking the can down the road.
Yep, for sure.
So, you know, uh, yeah. So, Rick, I mean, I definitely like that take. I mean, if you see a terrible roster and can trade the 9 and 10 for their 2021, then he doesn't mind it. But you don't want to take a risk, a lateral move to a worse class. So, and that's the thing you have to be concerned about. Oh, over on Facebook, Journey Brown is RB1. Journey Brown's
I really
he's
like Journey
nice.
Brown.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
really nice.
but no, is he a junior this year? Is he for sure coming out, or does he have to get a waiver to come out? See, that's
I
kind of that's kind of the weird thing too. Is it's you can really like these guys, but until they kind of see, for some of them, until you see how they're coming along
I
this
just
next
said I
year.
just said ETN was coming out this year, but anything's possible. I
Yeah,
expected ETN in this draft class, and all of a sudden he went back. So you never really know if a guy's gonna stay or go. But I mean, so looking at it now as a guy who's drafting and been drafting in Devy drafts, I mean, there's guys in the class that I like. That isn't always going to be the case. That doesn't mean they're gonna transition and go to the NFL and be as good as they were in college. So just be careful. So and that's that. Nathan, hopefully that helps. If you have more questions, make sure you let us know. David over on YouTube wants to know Swift, Dobbins, or Lamb at the 103. It's a 1 QB PPR 10 team dynasty. He also owns the 102. Chubb, Sanders, Ingram, and Sony Michelle. So I'm definitely going running back. Definitely
yeah,
going J.K. Dobbins. At
yeah.
the 102, you're probably getting.
Taylor or CH, I assume is what he's getting there.
Yeah, he's either getting Taylor or CEH. Swift, I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
touching in the top five. The earliest I touched him in one league, which is a 1 QB, was I got him at the 7 spot. And even that, I was trying to trade the pick. I was like, who wants Swift? Because I'm drafting him because Swift is a talented player. I just don't. We've had that conversation.
yeah, yep.
If we want
Dobbins,
Swift.
Dobbins, hands down for me. Dobbins, 100%.
Yeah,
Nothing but.
yeah, definitely Dobbins. So Rick says Akers.
Yeah, no, I'm going Dobbins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says Akers Dobbins 2 and 3. So he says because I know we know that Rick has Akers as his number 2 running
So
back right
because he
now.
still has CH as like his number 5, I think, right, or
Yeah,
something
well,
4.
neither him nor I really care for CEH nearly as much as the rest of the world. So I
I
tend
mean,
to
I
not
like
say
him. It's
much
just a
about him.
perfect spot. But that's the one thing. I think I've moved him from. Initially, I was like, "Oh my God, he's going to be my 1," and now he's like, "Yeah, he's probably my 3 behind Taylor, Dobbins, and CH is right. I mean, Akers is right there too."
Rick says no, I take Dobbins, but CEH is after them, so he's his 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's
CEH is
understandable. I mean,
CH is a guy I'll never own in rookie drafts because I'm just not touching him as high as he's going,
yeah,
and that's okay. I mean, it's just a guy I'm just not huge on.
I mean,
So,
I'll take him at 4 if he's there. I mean,
I don't think we're going to confuse you, but Facebook wants to know. Let's confuse Rob, Bijan Robinson, or Zachary Evans, and it really is a trick question because one's got character concerns. One's a stud running back that went to Texas that I drafted in Devy, and he's going to be a beast.
yeah, I'm out. I don't know. I don't know
he,
either.
he got a 404 error, people. Nothing.
Yeah, I
Bijan
got a
Bijan
404.
Robinson. Bijan Robinson is in the 2020 class. He went to Texas. Zachary Evans, I think, just agreed to TCU, but he's a running back
Is
that
that the
has
guy
some
who was like
concerns,
the number 1 running back,
but never
but he
committed.
like he committed to Georgia and then had to decommit because of something or whatever, and he didn't get to play in the football playoffs because
He's he's
something with
he's
his
definitely
bone.
he's definitely a dude that needs to do some maturing in college for sure.
Yeah. So where did he end up now?
TCU, I think. I think he just committed to TCU, and that says everything you need to know.
Yeah. Well, at least he'll probably be, the guy because we know the quarterback's not the guy.
Maybe he can play quarterback too. Who knows? I drafted Bijan Robinson in Devy, and I'm very excited about him. I think he's a really nice running back.
Where and he's
Uh,
going to Texas, you
yeah,
said?
he's in Texas. which Texas is quietly putting together a nice roster. They got Tariq Black in the transfer portal if he can stay healthy. They pair him up with what they've got there. I mean, I like Texas's offense. You know, Sam Erlinger one more year. This could be a nice offense this year. But it's not a Devy show, so we'll keep moving on because Facebook keeps taking us down the Devy track. Next, they're going to try to get us to talk IDP.
Well,
Um,
hey, maybe we should start a Devy stream. I'd
which
actually like to get into Devy. I think that'd be kind of fun. I just don't know enough about those really young kids yet. So
I did. So one of the guys that we've been having on our show, Shane Hallam, he's from FakePigskin.com. We've had him on a few shows. He approached me about joining. It's called the Pinnacle of Devy, and it's basically just going to be an insanely deep Devy league. I'm probably getting in over my head, like I do. I've been getting into Devy more and more, but Shane is like he probably could be a scout if he wanted to. He's so good. I definitely like Devy. Would love to do a Devy stream, and maybe when Roto Heat blows up and we get to the point where it's a little more funded and I can focus on it a little bit more, I'd be okay with streaming every night and doing a Devy stream too and hosting that. I love talking Devy. I just don't know that, I
well, I
wouldn't
mean,
feel comfortable saying Monday night IDP, Tuesday night offense, Devy at some point. I mean, like that would be where I want to get to. Like I would love to stream every night. That'd be amazing.
I think I might actually like as time goes on throughout the summer, like I start looking at the next draft class pretty early. So
Oh yeah,
like
I've already started.
so
We've
like
already
I feel
started
like
working on it.
I don't know much about the guys coming out of high school. I don't know that stuff like you do, or like other Devy people do. But I for sure know the guys who are getting close to graduating. So I can know a little bit of the Devy part, like a third of it.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Devy, and I, I keep an eye on the All Americans and things like that where you're starting to see that. But I mean, I start looking at, like 247 Sports does a really good job putting together content. So I'll look at them and kind of start looking at what they're seeing in some of their profiles and things like that. So there's a lot of great resources out there. Obviously YouTube does a great job with a lot of the guys like Jesse Fritsch and some of these guys putting together college tape. So there's a lot of good resources out there to help you grow in your Devy. And I've only been really focusing on Devy for I don't know 3 years. I mean, 3 years is about 3 years ago. I started getting interested and started really looking into it, and then started building up. So I mean, I've been doing fantasy football since like '99, 2000, but really started getting crazy deep just in the last 5 years, adding IDP 5 years ago, then adding Devy a couple years back. So it's cool. Like I love what Devy and IDP and some of these other formats do to fantasy football. I mean, it really takes it to another level.
So
Uh,
which LSU running back is the guy to have in Devy? Tyrion Davis Price or John Emery Jr.?
Emery is going to be the guy to have at least at this point and I think he'll be the next one to come out in the draft. I think what is he,
They're
2
both
years?
2022, I think.
Yeah, about to say. I thought he was 2022. Maybe well, but Emery Jr. is a better running back. I like him better than Price, but I think both of them could be NFL caliber running backs that could be fantasy relevant. But they do a little different. I mean, they're both kind of different types of running backs. I think Emery's kind of the total package, though. Yeah, Facebook agrees with me. Emery by miles.
Well,
But
that's
I
not
like
false.
like
So
I like Price though. Well,
no, I don't know. So I mean, I know that they're both considered pretty good. I've heard their names,
yeah, I
but
like I like Price. I like Price, but Emery's the total package.
yeah.
So
See, I look at the 2022 guys. I just got a short list of a few names, and I'm like, yeah, I've heard. I know George Pickens. I've
oh
heard
yeah,
of Price
Pickens is
and Emery.
nice.
I don't know
Yep.
who Jake Smith is, wide receiver for Texas.
Yep.
Don't know Brees Hall.
Oh, Hall's an interesting. He's an intriguing prospect. He's one of those guys that a few folks that I've talked to, it's kind of a love him hate him guy. Like some love him, some hate him. So um, Anthony Leone is back. So now we can get to the IDP segment of the show because I know he wants to talk about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
Antione. Antione. That's his new
Hey,
name.
and for those of you that haven't gone to TikTok to check out Antoine and his great TikTok videos, go over to TikTok and find Roto Heat on TikTok. Antoine's got the TikTok on lockdown. So okay, so if you have questions, make sure you throw them in the chat. So Antoine also needs ideas. So if you're in Facebook or Discord, put out ideas about what you want to see Antoine talk about on TikTok. So as we kind of culminate this rookie draft trend show to a close, Rob, are there things that you want to talk about, guys that we haven't really mentioned that people are sleeping on that he probably should be in the second rounds of your rookie drafts? Is there anybody else that you want to bring up?
Okay. Well, we had transitioned away from that, so you kind of got me off guard here. Let me just
We started debuting our Devy segment of the show.
yeah, we're just teasing the future Devy segment to come in the coming months, right? So Devin Duvernay is a guy that I like second round. I think he's a little bit of a reach there compared to where a lot of people have him, but I like him a lot. I think that's a good fit for the Ravens.
He's Steve Smith Jr. I mean, that's a perfect
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah, so that's a guy that I really like, that higher than I think a lot of other people, and definitely a second round type guy for me, and that's probably it.
Yeah.
As far as the guys I feel like we didn't really hit on.
Duvernay is a stash. I mean, he's definitely a guy where, man, I would love to get. He's falling into the third rounds in most drafts, and it's all over the place in the third round. So I would love to grab him and stash him and kind of see what happens. Because the tough thing is, I like Miles Boykin, who was their other receiver they drafted last year. Different type of receiver. Boykin's a big dude, gonna be on the outside. Duvernay can be all over the field. Smaller but explosive, and then you got Hollywood. So, I think all three of those guys are guys that I want to own, at least some shares of throughout my leagues, just because I like all three receivers. But I need to see this offense continue to grow. I need to see Lamar Jackson trust his arm and his eyes and pass the ball a little bit more before I could see them all have value, because we know Mark Andrews is their wide receiver one right now. I mean, he loves that tight end more than anybody.
Right. Yeah, that's one. And then the other guy, probably a guy right on that turn, second in the third round, kind of a guy that we didn't talk about yet, was Van Jefferson. Just a solid route runner. I mean, never great, stats at Florida, but I mean, he's
Cooper
got
Cup
the
2.0. Is it safe to say
yeah,
Cup 2.0? In that Rams offense that lost Brandon Cooks, so now they have need
could
for another
be.
receiver.
Could be, solid route runner. Dad's a NFL football coach, wide
Yep.
receiver coach, so he knows what it takes. He's going to put in the work. I think he could be pretty good. And I think that's a good spot for him into the second round. A guy that
Yeah.
you're looking at as a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. You don't expect that guy who's got up. I don't see wide receiver 1 upside. I mean, unless he's catching 120 balls, 140 balls, But that's what it's going to take. I don't see him being, the guy with 12 touchdowns or whatever. So,
But he's a nice third round pick. I mean, if you get him in the
very
third
nice
round
third
and there's
round pick.
value there.
Very, very nice end of the second, late third or early third round, whatever pick. So
Right.
I like him a lot there. Good value.
Right. So, okay. Well, there's no other questions. It's just people wanting Anthony Leone to talk IDP on TikTok, which doesn't make me think we're getting any more questions tonight. So yeah. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. Next week we'll be back talking more offensive fantasy football, but don't forget our Monday night IDP show. We've got some other things coming up on the plate. We've got some YouTube content that we're going to be dropping coming up here in the next week or two. We're going to start a new series on YouTube, so make sure you are a subscriber. Make sure you hit the like and the notification bell so that you can keep up to date every time we go live, because we go live Mondays and Tuesdays every week. Make sure you go to rotoheat.com. We've got a lot of Dynasty outlooks going on. Jacob, Selei, and a bunch of the other writers on the team have been pumping out individual deep dives. So this week we brought up James Conner and Alshon Jeffrey, and we've got some more that are dropping this week. Tyler Boyd is out. Follow us over on RotoHeat. You see Rob and I's Twitter handle are there, but at RotoHeat Fantasy is the main Twitter handle. Join Facebook, join Discord. Keep the conversation going with us. If you have questions, make sure you get them to us. Rob and I are always chatting in the community, so we are here to help. And don't forget to, oh, now Pons jumped on. Pons, we just talked about Devin Duvernay. He, Kevin Pons, one of our faithful team members, jumped on and asked about Devin Duvernay, who we just talked about. He's been going in the third round of drafts. He is a great sleeper stash, a guy that we both like. So make sure you get him if you can, stash him. He's going to have some value at some point because he's a good receiver. So for Rob, for Rick, for the team, thank you guys as always for supporting us. We're getting up there, we're growing, and we're having fun doing it. We love having the conversation with you guys, and just keep it up. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.